Bottom line is that the 49ers have not had a top 5 defense since 2022, since DeMeco Ryans left to be the head coach of the Texans.
Or since Brandon Ayuk and Fred Warner threw fists on the 49ers practice field.
A two-rounder between Fred Warner and Brandon Ayuk.
Or since I had a beard. That was actually the first ever instant reaction. Everyone copied us after that, but Fred Warner, Brandon Ayuk fought on the practice field, training camp 2022. I did the minute-long instant reaction coming off the field, and look where we're at now here in 2026. Talking about the 49ers defense falling off. You could look at the EPA, expected points added ranks, of the NFC West contenders last season. The glaring inefficiency here, at least amongst offenses and defenses, the 49ers defense at number 24. Seattle ended up winning 17 games, including the Super Bowl, obviously, with the number 1 defense and the number 1 special teams. That was a big differentiator between them and the Rams, who had a better offense than Seattle, number 2 versus number 14, but a worse defense and a way worse special teams. And if you watched, especially the regular season game, the determined home field advantage between LA and Seattle, it was special teams that was the big differentiator. So the Rams have gone out and they've tried to improve their defense. They added Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, and of course, Myles Garrett. We expect them to be up in that top 5 defensively, given those additions this year. I'm not so sure the Rams are going to hold on to number 2 offensively, though. That side of the football, it might be more tenuous there with age for the Rams. The 49ers, meanwhile, they need to make their big move statistically on defense. And that's why you've seen the aggressive roster turnover over the past 2 years outside of the Bosa, Warner, Lenore core. The defensive line is completely different than it was back in 2024 outside of Nick Bosa. They've even seen movement at linebacker, obviously trading D. Winters away. And the secondary, well, Renato Green, the draftee, entering the league in that 2024 season. He's a big piece for the 49ers moving forward at outside cornerback, as is 2025 draftee Upton Stout. In totality, the 49ers have the 3rd youngest defense now and the oldest offense. Now, there's logic behind this. The offensive renovation already underway. We'll talk about that in a little bit. With obviously, the 49ers have needed more speed, and I think a bigger part of the renovation is going to be happening in coming off seasons. But first and foremost, they needed to address the defense, because the glaring rank where the 49ers just cannot expect to sustainably compete, the one that they've got to fix is on the defensive side of the ball. I think offensively, they believe that they can crack into that top 5 with the additional speed that we'll talk about here in a couple minutes. But it's defensively where the 49ers have needed the biggest overhaul. And new defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris. Obviously, the 2 biggest additions are the returns to health of Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. Osa Odighizuwa, you didn't have a good pass rushing defensive tackle last year. You were anemic in that regard last year. He comes in for the 49ers as well, and they got to try to bolster linebacker around Fred Warner and, of course, support the secondary as much as possible. Well, all of those ingredients, especially the fact that Raheem Morris is, I think, planning to modernize this defense and add wrinkles that the defense probably needs to stay ahead in chess matches against opposing offensive coordinators. Will all of those ingredients be able to propel the 49ers into the top 12 defensively? I think that's actually the money question of this 2026 season. Then you look at offense and elevating to the top 5, because I think that sitting at number 6 is not enough. I think the 49ers need to move from a good offense, one that managed last year, into an actually elite unit. And as you can see, number 6 last year was tremendously impressive, given the fact that the 49ers had so much missing from the wide receiver position to quarterback, obviously. Brock Purdy only played about half the season. So they didn't have an explosive run game. That, I think, was rooted in the fact that their receivers, A, were not good separators, nor were they good blockers? I mean, Brandon Ayuk really hurt this football team by not being available for the 49ers in 2025 after they invested all that money in him in 2024. But the lack of speed, the lack of separation, the lack of blocking led to a lack of explosiveness in the run game. That led to a lack of explosiveness in the pass game because the run and the pass are tied together. So the 49ers have pursued the solution this offseason very, very aggressively. Last year, they had to rely on Christian McCaffrey playing high-volume Superman to solve things. They had to rely on the best quarterback room in the league, Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, to solve things. And, of course, Kyle Shanahan and his play calling bound everything together. But a year after they spent their first 5 draft picks on the defense, which was something they hadn't done since 1981, their first Super Bowl winning season, the 49ers went out and they spent big in free agency on receivers. You see Mike Evans, Christian Kirk. Those are 2 notable names that the 49ers added that will add separation, add blocking, and in the case of Christian Kirk, add real speed. His times last year, miles per hour times with the tracker and his shoulder pad, were faster than anybody on the 49ers offense. So that's saying something for San Francisco. And then they went out and got a 4-3 receiver in Dejon Stribling in the NFL draft. So they've completely overhauled the receiver core, trying to add that speed, trying to add that explosiveness. And of course, Kalen Black, the new running back, he looks explosive out of Indiana. And don't underestimate the power of fresh legs that Black is going to bring to the table. You combine all of those things for San Francisco, and I truly believe that they have the ability to be a top 5 offense, despite the fact that they are the oldest offense in the league. And that's the thing about the 49ers formula that some members of the national media that are talking about the age of this 49ers roster just really aren't comprehending within context. Older rather than younger is not necessarily better. Younger rather than older is not necessarily better. It's the right mix of both that is very important and vital for a football team to be good. You need your veteran pillars, you need your veteran leadership, and then you need your youthful energy on a team. So a team that is just too old across the board, that's bad. A team that is too young across the board probably is not going to have the leadership and the wherewithal necessary to win a title. Finding the right mix of both is the pathway to success in the NFL. And I think there are delineations between both sides of the football. In general, on defense, because you're not handling the football, it's a little less of a skill side of the ball. That's where you can get away with the youth infusion first. And that's why the 49ers have rebuilt this the way that they're rebuilding this. First came the big defensive youth talent infusion. That is why they're the 3rd youngest on that side. You still need your veteran pillars, and that's where Bosa comes in. That is where Fred Warner comes in. That's where Deommodore Lenoir comes in. But you do need more speed. You need more energy. And, maybe that's where Romello Height comes in for the 49ers. They also wanted ready-made rookies, and Height, I think, is a great example of that, being 25 years old, played for 6 different college teams. On the offensive side of the ball, everyone knows that Trent Williams won't last forever. Everyone knows Christian McCaffrey won't last forever. I mean, that's just obvious stuff. Mike Evans is going to be 33 years old this year. George Kittle is only about 10 months younger than Mike Evans. So, of course, the 49ers have an older offense. It is, on average, the oldest in the league. But I don't think anybody is questioning the football playing abilities of Trent Williams, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, or at least anybody with any credibility is questioning those capabilities. Those guys at some point are going to hang them up, and they won't be with the 49ers forever. But as we saw last year, there's still a lot of good football in Christian McCaffrey's tank. Mike Evans, well, the 49ers are betting that he still has a lot left. Supposedly, he's been kicking ass for the 49ers over the course of the offseason program. Nobody could cover him. The young guys cannot keep up with Mike Evans. And, I would say that George Kittle probably still has something left in the tank. I wouldn't bet against a future Hall of Famer. Mostly, though, I wouldn't bet against the fact that the 49ers have the one most important premium piece, and that is their quarterback, Brock Purdy. We've seen this time and time again in the NFL. Teams rise and fall. Talent comes and it goes. But the teams that are able to withstand the natural roster waves of the NFL are the ones that have the quarterback, the elite quarterback in place. And that's what the 49ers have. They've got Purdy, a young elite quarterback in place. The proof there is absolutely in the pudding. He's been at the top of NFL statistics ever since he joined the league in 2022. In fact, 2022, that's the last time the 49ers had that top 5 defense. The last time I had a beard before this year. And of course, the year that we saw Brandon Ayuk and Fred Warner fight in training camp. The birth of the instant reaction. So everything comes full circle here about a half decade later. 49ers trying to claw back into the top 5 defensively because it is balance that can win a title. Balance is the key word. Balance with a capital B. The 49ers did not have it last year. Now, one thing that bailed them out, and we cannot ignore the fact that the 49ers won 13 games in 2025, including a win over the defending world champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, on the road in the playoffs. Special teams for the 49ers. In years prior, they had been at the bottom of the league. Last year, they were behind only Seattle. Now, fittingly, ironically, I'm not sure which one applies here, but the 49ers season ended in Seattle, and it was over basically before that game began, before a snap was taken from scrimmage, because the Seahawks returned to kick for a touchdown against the 49ers. You saw the difference between the number 1 special teams unit in football and the number 2 special teams unit in football. So special teams was a differentiator for the Seahawks over the Rams, and it was definitely a differentiator for the Seahawks over the 49ers. 49ers must keep their foot on the gas on special teams, keep it up near the top of the league. They have the most slack to pick up on the defensive side of the ball. And of course, they still want to push that offense into the tier of the elite. The reason that the Seahawks and the Rams were the top 2 teams in the NFC last year is because they both had at least one elite phase of the game out of offense and defense. The 49ers didn't. The 49ers were good on offense and they were bad on defense, obviously all colored by injuries. I think if the 49ers were healthy, they could have been maybe even elite on both offense and defense. That's why Trent Williams thinks this team can be dominant if they don't have to show their resilience. But however they get there, the 49ers need to make sure that at least one of offense or defense is elite in that top 5, preferably, I would say top 3 here in 2026. They're closest on offense, and that's where the clock is ticking for some of these older players. But they've got a bunch of future Hall of Famers, and they've got Brock Purdy, and who knows where he's going to end up at the end of his career. But he's been the best QB efficiency-wise in football since he joined in 2022. The irony is that everybody said that he had a team carrying him. He's actually been carrying the team. They haven't separated. They didn't have a run game, and they very clearly didn't have a good defense in 2025. Purdy, just like any other quarterback in the NFL, is going to need some help from the 49ers, and that's going to involve speed, separation, and a run game to get this offense into the top 3. It's going to involve help from a completely modernized defense outside of Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and Deommodore Lenoir to get that into the top 12. Maybe even the top 14 would work. Look at the Seahawks, 14-1-1. The 49ers can maintain a very good special teams. Perhaps the number 3 offense, the number 12 defense, and the number 2 special teams unit would work. Remember that this was the best division in NFL history last year. A 17-win Super Bowl champion, a 14-win NFC runner-up, and a 13-win third-place team in the 49ers who actually beat the defending world champions in the playoffs. Impressive stuff in the NFC West. The Rams have obviously loaded up, but so have the 49ers. I mean, adding Osa Odighizuwa, adding Mike Evans, adding Dre Greenlaw. We'll see what their draft class does. That's not nothing. That's a lot for the 49ers. It is going to be another intense race at the top of the NFC West. And the winner will be determined by balance. Who can balance out the columns that I showed you? The last time the 49ers truly balanced out those columns, it was 2022. In 2023, their defense was number 10, and their special teams wasn't good. And it ended up costing them in the Super Bowl. 2022 was the year the 49ers had the type of balance that could win a cutthroat division like this 2026 NFC West. That's when they were number 1 defense. That's when they were top 5 offense. Special teams wasn't bad that year either. They were right middle of the pack. That's what the 49ers have to recreate. That's what this offseason has been designed around. And, well, the 49ers can rest easy knowing that Brock Purdy is their quarterback to build around. But we'll see how successful their mission of building balance has been.